much. We will now call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. It's about 5:35 right now, Wednesday, November 12, 2008. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Burgess?
Here.
Councilwoman Lopez? Councilman McCormick?
Here. Councilman
Nelson?
Here.
Councilwoman Sierra?
Here.
Councilwoman Waldman is absent. Mayor Bell?
Here. Thank you very much. I will now entertain a motion for the Committee of the Whole October 12th minutes. A second. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any comments or corrections on the minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes carry. Item B, resolution to accept the grant from U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and establish a budget in the amount of $500,000.
I'll second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Kind of like a no-brainer when you want to accept $500,000. Doesn't it sound better when you say $500,000 instead of $500,000? That's what I thought. Comments or questions from council? All in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes carry. Thank you. Item C, resolution to accept grant from U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and establish a budget in the amount of $240,600.
I'll move it.
I'll second. It's been properly moved in second. They really took a lot of money from that grant to handle it, didn't they? I guess we're not going to look at that gift horse in the mouth, but it seemed like they took a lot of money from that. Any comments or questions on that grant, EPA grant? All in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes carry. Thank you. Item D, United Healthcare Insurance Renewal, tab 4.
I'll move it.
I'll second. It's been properly moved and seconded. You can see it's going up, but the benefits are staying exactly the same. Any comments or questions from Marcy? All in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes carry. Thank you. Finance Enterprise Committee, Councilwoman Lobos.
Thank you, Mayor Bell. Looking at tab 5, item A, we're looking at bid number 200510, and it's simply a tree trimming extension, number 2.
Second.
Thank you. And as you see in your packet, the company that we're remaining with is Asplund Tree Expert Company, and this is the final of 2 possible 1-year extensions. This original contract was in 2005, and are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item, tab 6, bid number 200604, water and wastewater treatment chemicals extension, summer 1.
Second it.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Okay, and this, as the one previous, it's an extension of an existing contract, and it's the first of 2 possible 1-year extensions, and we're going with 2 companies, Allied Universal Corp. and Polydyne Corporation. Are there any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Tab 7, item C, bid number 200612, school crossing guards extension number 1.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Same as before, it's an extension to an existing contract. The company that we're remaining with is Staffing Connection Action Labor. And this, as your packet explains, provides for 8 crossing guards at 3 elementary schools. And I would just like to make a comment. I don't know, Councilwoman Sierra, if this is a conversation that we can start with Dr. Larry Feldman, but at some point when the school board stabilizes, we need to have another conversation about us funding this completely. And the school crossing guards is definitely an operation of the school system, and I think that even if they meet us halfway, that this funding should at some portion come from the school board.
I was quite surprised when I saw it on our agenda and actually dove into it, and I therefore agree with you. I think it's something we need to bring up to Dr. Feldman, and in fact I have a call into him later this evening. Do you want me to go ahead and mention it, or is it something that you want to bring up?
Let me, Mayor Bell, do you have a comment as well?
Yeah, this is an item that got turned over to us quite a few years ago, and the school board has decided that that is going to be the city's responsibility, and that these schools that reside within the city limits, that's going to be our burden, and they're not going to take it back. I mean, that's been, because I had the same question 5 years ago.
Mayor Bell, may I ask you a question? How do we work
Sure,
with counties?
Councilwoman Sierra.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Councilwoman Lopez, may I please ask Mayor Bell a question?
You may.
Do you know how they do this with the county schools that are not in any municipality? Does the county carry the burden for the...
I would assume it would have to be the same thing across the board.
Okay.
So every city, whether it's Cutler Bay, Palmetto Bay, Coral Gables, Pinecrest, they have to pay for the school crossing guards that are within their city limits. So, Chief, do you know how long ago this, I mean, I know it's been, ever since I've been here, we've been having to foot the bill.
You're correct. They gave it back to the municipalities because the county originally had a Dade County had, not the school board. But I guess they found out there was a lot of budgeting to do it, and they gave it to the municipalities, and everybody's doing the same thing right now.
Ms. Hayes, did you have a comment?
Yes, Councilwoman Lobos and Mayor Bell, this was started back in 2000. The city took it over. We originally had employees, part-time employees, and that didn't work out in the best interest of getting the crossing guards covered. So we went to a temporary agency in 2002, and that's who we've been using ever since.
Thank you. Well, I don't think it would hurt to have that conversation. If they turn us down again, they turn us down again, but at least it's something that we can bring up. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Tab 8.
I'll move it.
I second it.
Thank you. This is RFP number 200824, and it's a grant administration and project delivery service for a 2005 CDBG Disaster Recovery Program, Phase 2 of Hurricane Wilma grant. One of the questions that I asked Mr. Shahada, the city manager, was why are we still in the process of receiving grants from a hurricane from 2005? And as you remember, we already approved Phase 1, and we also looked at the 8 houses that have been selected for this grant. And he said that the lateness of the timeline is due to a process delay from paperwork going from the federal to the county level. And so obviously, when the county got it late, the city got it late, and that's why we're still having to vote on this item, even though the hurricane happened in 2005. Are there any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Ms. Lopez.
Councilman.
I believe that we received grants from Hurricane Andrew, didn't we? I'm looking at the chief because I know some of them had to do with public safety up until like 1999 or even past 2000.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martin.
They want to give money.
Councilwoman Lobos?
Yes.
FEMA is notoriously behind. We still haven't closed out Hurricane Katrina work orders, so it's mostly on FEMA's end that all this is coming at such a late date.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Smith. My only question, obviously, is when we get into the having to prove that whatever damages are going to be repaired all from the hurricane. And so that's where my questions are. And when the city manager answered that we had already selected the 8 houses, the repairs were directly tied to Hurricane Wilma, then I was fine with it. But that was my logical question, is if this money is to repair something from Hurricane of 2005, are we in any kind of liability at risk for having to prove that, yes, the repairs that we're going to do are from that time frame? Thank you. And the only other thing before I close out my committee report, Mayor Bell, that I wanted to point out to, I'm sure the rest of council has noticed that we now have a vendor performance review form, and I think it is excellent. I've commented to the city manager's office that this is, I mean, it's an excellent idea and it's very helpful in determining what information we need for the item. So I know that Mr. Shahada had asked and requested for this form, and it's still in its process of being improved so that it can be more useful, inclusive of more information. So thank you. That's it for me, Mayor Bell. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That's all for me, Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yeah, I also thought it was so great that that's why I even mentioned it in the State of the City address, because I thought it was such a great idea. Really, accountability is a good thing. It's always a good thing. Public Safety Committee, Councilman Nelson.
We have a discussion on attire, saggy pants. The last couple of weeks I've been doing a lot with the school board and Homestead Police out at Homestead High School, and there's a problem with gangs. And one of the things the chief and Detective Morales was telling me is the saggy pants with their boxers sticking out of them is a way of the gangs showing their gang colors. And the police department or a couple of police officers asked me if we could maybe explore something in this area for an ordinance to address that. If the chief would like to elaborate a little bit more on it?
I appreciate it, but the expert is sitting behind me. Detective Morales, he probably can tell you a little bit more about it than I can, even though I don't approve of it, but he has the knowledge behind it. Thanks.
There's been a direct link between fashion and gangs. It all started in California with the Bloods and the Crips. I'm sure we've all heard about it. What they're doing now is that they're wearing several layers of boxer shorts, different colors signifying the colors of their gangs. Another thing that we've been finding is that it creates a perfect opportunity for hiding narcotics. We've found firearms under 3-4 layers of boxer shorts where they pull their pants a little bit lower, tighten the belt so that the firearm wouldn't fall down past their thighs. Can you picture that? You understand what I'm saying? Their pants are usually or shorts are by their thighs, and then the waist area where their boxer shorts are showing, they'll put a firearm or drugs, and they'll tighten the belt on the pants or the shorts so that it wouldn't fall past their thighs.
Okay.
As far as the bandanas, that's another thing that they've been using. They've been putting them on their boxer shorts or just outside on one of the links of their shorts, signifying their colors, and also signifying sort of like, if you would, like a war cry, hey, we're going to do this with different colors. For example, if the gang signifies, I'll just give you a perfect example, the INP gang, white and blue, and they're want to fight a toys gang, which is black and white, white over black, and they want to disrespect them, they'll wear their boxer shorts black over white. So they're playing that type of game now with the boxer shorts and showing them.
Councilman Nelson?
I'm sorry.
Councilman Nelson, I know we have a lot of issues with the saggy pants, with a lot of things. I'm very hesitant about trying to go by the way of an ordinance to kind of outlaw something like that. I think we should take a look at it. I think where this needs to be stopped, quite frankly, is in the schools. And I think that the number one way to tackle this is if it's not acceptable in the schools. And if they adhere to their strict uniform policy and they don't allow this, but it's going to be like, as much as I hate it, and when I drive down the road and I see it, I want to yell to somebody, pull your pants up. By the way, I have done that, by the way, but it just makes me a little crazy, especially when they put the belt under their butt. That just makes me want to lose my mind. But I'm just always hesitant I think a discussion is good, and real hesitant to enact an ordinance against one particular behavior. I'm sure that's...
I have done a bit of research on this. There's a couple of cities that have passed ordinance on it. Riviera Beach has a city-wide ordinance, which is very restrictive, and Opelika has an ordinance that is only in city-owned buildings and public parks. And that's something that I would like to if we could go for the less restrictive one in city-owned buildings and public parks, because there's a park over here right off of Campbell, in the northeast section, where the gangs are meeting, and today I drove by there and there was 6 of them sitting on the park bench with their saggy clothes. And it's just something that I think we need to address. We've got a gang problem in the city. It's going to get worse unless we start addressing it and start harassing them. We harass them to stop, we're going to drive them out. And that's, I think, what we need to do.
And Councilman, I absolutely know that we have a problem. I know many cities do, but I know that that's just one of many avenues that they use. I mean, what if they have their pants with and it's fine, that's not saggy, but then what if there's 2 inches of the waistband showing, then, because they're going to find a way. I mean, let's face it, they're going to find a way. Then do we outlaw the black versus the blue versus the white? And then, they're writing the symbols on the book bags, they're writing the gang symbols on their shoes, in the wrist. You know what I'm saying? I mean, where do we go with this? So I just want to caution us that while I recognize we have a problem, I want to caution us about throwing ordinance at everything.
I do too, Councilman.
I think Councilman Waldman had a question.
I think it was me. I just want to say, and Mayor, you remember when we had a gentleman come forth to the podium a couple years ago, and at that time we all voiced our opinion of how deplorable it is and how none of us can stand it. But at that time, if I'm not mistaken, we instructed the attorneys to look into it, and we were never advised to move forward with it. So, James, I don't know if you were here then or not, and Mayor, I can't remember how many years ago it was. I think it was about 3, wasn't it?
Actually, it was about 1 year ago in September.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, 1 year ago in September, and I remember it was Johnny Doctor.
Yeah, you knew him very well, and we all feel the same way. But at that time, I think it was a liability to the city to, and we didn't know how we were going to enforce it in the first place. But Officer Morales, I mean, we know personally because I've been working with you with some gang situations, and it's terrible. But I agree with the mayor with this. It's going to be very difficult.
I have a comment, Councilman Nelson.
Go ahead.
When we start attacking a preference, then you have to go through the whole idea of somebody saying they're being stereotyped, they're being profiled, because it's not exactly all gang members that wear their pants like that. So we have to get to the root of the source, and if it's the gangs that has the problem that we're trying to attack, then we have to use the gang task force and use the identifiers to identify who it is that we're exactly going after. Because I know for a fact, whether we like it or not, it's something that is prevalent in today's society. So, because I see people walk by my barbershop often that has nothing to do with gangs, but you might see their bosses, whether they're white, blue, red, whatever it is, and then we start saying, well, that's a gang member, then we have a problem. So to attack it based on that issue right there, I think that it'll be a real big problem in the city. Then we have to go with the police against the citizens, the city against the citizens, and that's something that we don't need right now. We're trying to rebuild and trying to redefine the city of Homestead at this time right now. So, but if the problem is being instituted or coming from the schools, we need to go inside the schools and really start with awareness and parent involvement, and go from there. Probably, I think a lot of times what in the Southwest what I'm trying to do is institute some things that are even thinking about gangs, whether it's after-school programs or other sports activities, so that we don't, like I say, the things that get them involved in that, we can kind of eliminate that, and then maybe we can have a better outcome in a year or so, or in the near future.
Okay.
I have a question.
John's had his hand up, too.
Oh, that's all right. Go ahead. I had to write down my question so I wouldn't forget. I just have a question. Do we know, Mo or Chief, if any of these cities that have passed any ordinance, whether they're strict or lenient or however, has it shown a relation to lessening the gang activity in the community? Because I feel very much like Councilman McCormick, where it's difficult to determine, is that gang related or is it just a fashion statement? What is it that you're doing? But I was curious to know if it has had an impact in any other municipality that has an ordinance passed. Do we know?
I don't know about Riviera Beach, but I know through MAGTAF, the Multi-Agency Gang Task Force, and Opelika, it has made a difference, because they know that in the city parks or the city buildings they can't do it. So if they were to go to a function in a park, they would, dress appropriately, and then obviously when they leave, they're still dressed appropriately, or prior to going to it, they're still dressed appropriately. And little by little, that has been phasing out.
But does it deter gangs from occurring in the city? Because if I'm in a gang and I want to go to a park, I know that I have to dress one way, but it doesn't make me stop being part of that gang.
I'll tell you,
that's my question.
I'll tell you, when you're combating gangs, every little bit helps. Anything we can do to deter them from either showing their signs or displaying their colors or whatnot, every little bit helps in deterring them from being out in the street. And the situation is not them just showing their signs. Somebody comes by, sees that they're wearing a red and blue pair of shorts, they're going to get shot at, they're going to get jumped. It's already happened. So it's deterring that type of action.
Well, and an innocent person, just to add on to that, an innocent person could be walking into the park, have his pants fall down, have the wrong color, and get shot.
Sure.
So, I mean, you do have to, not fall down, but, accidentally expose himself. So, I mean, it could, unfortunately, an innocent family member could be walking through one of our parks, and this isn't picking on parks or anything, but just an example, and bend over and have Joe the plumber pants and be seen wrong.
Watch it.
Well, Joe the plumber is my friend too. But I didn't want to say Mark the plumber. But, and that, so I think in that aspect, it is a good idea, but I think we also need to get to the, back to what Mayor Bell was saying, is we've got to get the school board to be more aggressive and not put the burden just on the Homestead PD down here, because that's a big burden of us going into the school, and it's really not, it is our jurisdiction, but they supersede us there, if I'm correct, in following the chain of command how things go. So we need to make sure that they're willing to follow through if we do something like this, and that they're going to hold up their end of the bargain if we so choose to go that way, if the body does. I agree that I would like to see it in public places such as public parks and stuff, just so we don't have an incident like, an unfortunate incident like, that happened to a guy, because you hear things like that happen all over the country. So for me, I would certainly back, in public parks and other city-owned properties, I guess, if we can legally do that, James. And then my other question is to Detective Morales and Chief is, how do you go about enforcing this so that we don't do it in such a way that people are offended if they're accidentally doing it? Because like Councilman McCormick said, it is a fashion way nowadays, whether we like it or not. Yeah. So we need to make sure that, that we look into this and do our due diligence of how we would enforce it and make sure that we do it properly and all that. And I don't know how you go about that at first to make sure that people aren't offended and we end up with somebody getting hurt. All of a sudden you get a guy pushing and shoving, and then we've got a suit against the city for whatever. So I think we need to get some clear language somehow on what, and not just move it tonight to do that, but some clearer language from me. I'm all for the public places, but I think we need to get some specific and clear language of what we're going to do with it. That's my opinion.
Councilman
If it's so moved or whatever, but that's my thought.
Yes, Councilwoman Robles?
Thank you. This has been beat up already, but I just wanted to add that, this conversation is taken in two different directions. We started out with gang-related incidents, and then we moved into parks. But just to go back to the gang-related incidents, to kind of put that to rest, Councilman Nelson, you've been in meetings where you've seen that the gang task force, as well as the Florida City, Homestead City Police, the principals of the high school, that they're all on board with becoming aggressive about the uniform policy. So as far as this gang-related is concerned, I think that we have their attention. I think we have our school board elect members' attention. We've had several discussions with Dr. Feldman about this, and so I think that if we were starting at zero, that this would make sense in some way or another, but we're not. There's already activity happening towards trying to bring this under control. And then as far as having the conversation in parks and public places, I think we need more information. How do they enforce it? Yeah, if other cities have done it, if they have ordinances to try and limit it in city places, how do they do it? How do they enforce it? And Councilwoman Sierra, you bring up a good point. Is it effective? Because if it's not, then this whole point of having an ordinance just for the sake of having an ordinance is not what we should be in the business of doing.
Councilman Nelson, I make a recommendation. I really understand where this comes from, and I understand that you have been working intimately and you understand what's happening, and I appreciate that. I really do. I think our best avenue right now is working through the school system, school police, Detective Morales, and working through that. I'm still very hesitant, and it's really not recommended by the attorneys from a year ago, to enact a particular ordinance that targets one type of dress. I think we need to be very careful about that. As much as I deplore it and don't like it, we have to be very cautious about it. So what I would recommend that you do is work with Councilwoman Sierra, strict uniform policy in the schools. We need to monitor what's happening in our parks regardless of what they're dressed like, regardless of whether they're wearing saggy pants or non-saggy pants, regardless if they're hanging out, if they're drinking, whatever they're doing in the park. We need to be paying attention no matter what they're wearing. So I'm just afraid that while I think I completely understand where you're coming from, I think it's been a very good discussion. I think we need to probably just table it. Let's go back to the schools. Let's go back with having a strict uniform policy from there, and then let's see where we go from there. Okay, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
May I ask one more quick question, please, Councilman?
Yes.
Can't we, I know exactly when you see the underwear hanging out and the belt around the thighs or almost the knees, can't you arrest them for indecent exposure?
That's what I asked. I was wondering the same thing.
Why can't we arrest them for indecent exposure? And in front of little children, wouldn't that be a good argument? Wouldn't that hold up in court?
Just for showing boxer shorts, it wouldn't be, you go to the beach and you'll see a lot less, a lot less clothing. So it's just for wearing boxer shorts, it's not
But I'm talking
arrestable.
about on city property. Can't we arrest them on city property for...
That doesn't meet the state statute for indecent exposure.
I asked the same thing because they're covered.
Yeah.
They're not uncovered, they're covered.
I've seen more than I want to see from some of these boxer shorts. And what about when they have their, for whatever better word, the tighty-whities on and still have them hanging down? Which I saw that the other day in Audubon Park. So, isn't that indecent exposure? Or maybe I'm just from the old school where you don't go out in underwear.
I think we all are, but that wouldn't be indecent exposure.
Okay. Learn something new every day.
Could I just ask one more question? So that, what would, because we've all said what we thought, what, as a detective who works with this every day and all that, and trying to come up with a program to deter it, what would be the ideal situation, or what have you guys think is the best way to take care of this? And just so I know where you guys are starting from and what your goal is for what the best scenario.
Well, I know that Opa-locka, what they have is like a fine process. They're not actually arrested for it. They're actually fined for it. It's like a city ordinance, basically like a ticket type thing. And then if it progresses, then it becomes an arrestable situation. But I'll tell you from personal experience, from being out there on a daily basis, it does have a direct link towards the gang situation today. And as we all know, it's beginning to, the level of violence and gang situations here in Homestead, it's little by little rising. So, anything we can do at all to either stop it or slow it down a little bit would definitely help.
And I think we all need not forget what Councilman McCormick said, that we need to get these programs for these people, because I think a lot of these kids come from single-family homes or no adult in their homes, and they're looking for families, and if somehow as we as a city can start finding them programs and get them involved with other things.
And we do. We have programs throughout.
And we need to make sure that we strongly support them and try to keep those.
We have programs through SOS.
Yeah.
We have, the Gang Resource Center, which we're taking juveniles there, and not only juveniles, adults there also in gangs also. We have programs in the PAL, and different agencies would have, but the problem is, you can lead the horse to the river, but you can't make him drink.
We need to entice them to come there somehow.
Correct.
And that, unfortunately, it's the old adage, you can't make them drink once you get them.
Well, I think it's been a good conversation, and I think it's something... Oh,
I'm sorry. I have one more thing. Is it possible to get actual statistics and information to see what this type of ordinance has done in other cities? I don't want to say that I wouldn't approve an ordinance, and I don't want to say I'm against an ordinance until I have the information of how much this will assist our police officers or how much it wouldn't. Is there a way to get information? Is there some resource that I can go to?
I guess we could probably contact Opa-locka and Riviera Beach and see how effective it's been for them. I've spoken to several MAGTAB officers who have been down in the North End who have said it's made a difference. See, it's okay to have them in the schools, but once they get out of school, what they'll do is they'll just lower them.
Right.
They'll just lower their pants right when they're walking straight out the door and then out into the streets. But most of the times they leave the schools and they go to the parks. So if it's enforced in the schools and in the parks and in certain areas, you're pretty much guaranteeing, the whole day, and, you'll have less and less of this.
And I must say that I feel very confident that the school board is actually working very closely with us more now than ever, and I really appreciate everything that you have done and your group has done, and Chief, you as well, because working together at the school level level, like you just said, we're going to take care of it at the school level, and I already see that path. But as you were saying, many of them then go to the parks right after when they leave. How can we assist, as your city officials, assist our police force in being able to deter them from continuing the activity outside of school? So I would love to find out, further information as to the pros and cons of moving forward with this. I don't know if we can get some information legally, what we can and cannot do. I would really appreciate that. Good.
We've looked at the issue. There is an ordinance in Riviera Beach that is currently in litigation and under challenge right now. The Opa-locka ordinance, there's not been any challenge to it at this point. And there really aren't any other Florida jurisdictions that have adopted this ordinance. It's very on the forefront. There was a lot of national attention on the Riviera Beach ordinance, a lot of negative attention associated with the Riviera Beach ordinance, and it's questionable whether or not it's constitutionally valid. The claim that you'll get from someone who's going to challenge this is that you are prohibiting or violating someone's First Amendment right to freedom of expression. That nonverbal expression, that wearing a shirt, wearing some type of clothing is their expression that's protected under the First Amendment. There has been a federal case that came out of Albuquerque in New Mexico. That was a case that was raised by a student in the school district because of the uniform policy. That uniform policy was upheld to be constitutional from the school board, but that's still only one case that's out there. It's a federal circuit court case that gives us some indication what a federal court might do. And we have that, but really there's no precedent out there in Florida with respect to where the Florida courts would rule on this. It's certainly it's not something we would advise. I mean, if you certainly go down this path, you could stand the significant chance that you would get challenged as a First Amendment, as a First Amendment claim against the particular ordinance as being unconstitutional. That's not to say that it wouldn't happen, but the probability is likely high that it would. We have advised in the past that perhaps it's better to have this go through the school board. Certainly in that limited context, the constitutionally was upheld, but it was only upheld in the context of that uniform school policy, not outside the school. So we're not exactly sure what would happen when you get outside of that construct. If there's not an immediate need to do it, it would certainly be good for you all to see what happens with the Riviera Beach litigation and see how that plays out before you all decide to move forward. But that's certainly up to you all, as a council, on which direction you'd like to take.
Okay.
You finished?
So I believe we're done. We'll get the statistics, and we can make it for all the council members to see if it makes a difference or not. And then maybe we can revisit this here shortly. Okay? Thank you.
And I would like to see what happens with Riviera Beach's challenge. So, James, when you get that answer, would you bring that back to us, please?
Yes, we'll monitor that for you.
Thank you.
And Mayor Bell, could we also, in the information that we get back, tell us when they're minors, are the parents ultimately responsible? I mean, how does that work? So, in your findings with Riviera Beach, if you could give us that information as well.
Well, I know in the Opa-locka one, for example, if you're 16 years old, you're a minor. If you get a traffic citation, your parents aren't responsible. And it worked basically the same way, that the child was responsible. And if I'm not mistaken, it affected something with their driver's license also. But we can find all that out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That ends the committee of the whole agenda. You have anything for the board, for the Councilman Nelson?
This weekend, this weekend there's music in the park Saturday,
Right.
6 to 6 to 10, with a couple of great bands. I hope everybody can attend.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sierra? Anything?
I was just looking for a date.
Our next,
It's the 15th, Saturday.
no, our next Education Committee meeting is on the 19th of November. It is a Wednesday this time. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Just real quick, the Mayor's Youth Council is going to be doing a food drive for the Homestead Soup Kitchen starting December 1st, running through the 19th. If anybody would like to help or knows of some spot they think would be a good drop area, please let me know. We're looking for dried foods, and the reason we chose Christmas, just people asked, is because talking with Mr. Jensen, who's one of the board members there, that people always give food around Thanksgiving, and at Christmas they always give toys, and the hungry are still hungry even though they have a teddy bear to play with, so that's why we chose that time of year to go forward with the food drive. So if anybody has any great ideas to help us, please let us know.
Thank you. Councilman Lobos? Nothing tonight, Mayor Bell. Mr. McCormick?
Yes, two quick things. Tomorrow is the Southwest Advisory Committee meeting at 4:30 in the council chambers. And I'd like to say thank you to all who attended the Southwest Town Hall meeting last week. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Waldman? With no more business to attend to, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.